Hello and welcome. We're here with the legend, four-time Olympic champion Michael Johnson. Thanks so much for joining us on Jamaicans.com.
Absolutely good to be here.
First off, Grand Slam, it kicks off in Kingston. Why Kingston?
For Grand Slam, this is our inaugural season, and we wanted to, honor the contribution that Jamaica has had on the sport of track and field over decades. Everyone around the world knows Jamaicans are some of the greatest track athletes in the world, and we get to see them, compete around the world on the global stage. But nobody has actually gone and taken a global event to Jamaica to truly honor that culture of sprinting and track and field. And so we thought that was important. One of the things that we're doing with Grand Slam Track is really modernizing the sport, but at the same time honoring the history of this sport and the greatness of this sport. And we thought, no better way to do that than to take our first event to Kingston. As well, our Grand Slam track events, of which there are four this year, infuse culture into the sort of festival of speed that is a Grand Slam track event. And so we thought, again, no better place than Kingston to infuse the music and food culture of Jamaica into sport with track. So we're really excited to be coming there, and hope the fans are as well.
Well, we're looking forward to hosting you. Lots of excitement building. But your first, appearance, you started out as a college athlete, I think, in Jamaica. Tell us about that first time for you competing in Jamaica.
Yeah, I fondly remember being a college athlete, heading down to Kingston, competing there as a college athlete at Baylor, and just seeing the talent, the young talent that was there. It was something I'd never seen before. So the stadium was packed. The passion for track is real in Jamaica, which again is one of the reasons why we wanted to come there. So we're really looking forward to giving those passionate fans a real show.
Well, talking about passion, the Boys and Girls Athletic Championships comes up in Jamaica this week. We're kicking off. Tell us a little bit about your experience there. You've probably seen the athletes compete, and what do you believe how that has helped in terms of attracting the Grand Slam to Jamaica?
Yeah, I think again, I think Champs is a real example of the passion that Jamaican have for the sport. Watching Champs and just how people turn out for that event and support it and get into it, and really just enjoy themselves watching this sport, even at the youth level. Is a real indicator of just the passion for this sport in Jamaica. So that certainly had an influence on our decision to take Grand Slam track to Kingston.
Michael, when did you first realize Jamaica's dominance, in the sprint, and now we have branched off into the field as well?
Yeah, I think when I was a collegiate athlete, we had lots of Jamaican athletes competing at the collegiate level. Raymond Stewart was in my conference at TCU. I was at Baylor. Andrew Smith, Bert Cameron, all of those athletes, that I was exposed to back then. We knew that these were Jamaican athletes, and they were some of the best athletes in the NCAA system, and so we knew that, yeah, there's some great athletes that come from Jamaica. Yeah, and it was obviously back then primarily around the sprints, but it was for me noticing it was then. I think most people, if you follow track and field and you look at the history of track and field, you will understand that Jamaica has had an unbelievable impact, especially given the size of the country on this sport, punching far above its weight in terms of size, to have an incredible impact on the sport and medals at the global championships. But yeah, to your point, it's not just limited to the sprint events, which is what most people, think when they think of Jamaican track and field athletes. Certainly, this past Olympics in Paris, the field events was what really shined for Jamaica when the sprints were not, what you would normally have expected.
Thank you so much. And that rivalry between Jamaica and the US, how have you seen it, over the years?
I've been a part of it. I've been I've been right in the middle of it. It's real. I think it's intensified. It goes through its phases where the Jamaicans are on top, then the Americans are on top, and then the Jamaicans are back on top. So it's a real rivalry, and it's one of the most fascinating things I think about the sport when you've got this country of 3 million people, competing, head to head, and sometimes dominating a country of 300 million people, and in close proximity as well. But I think that, it's a friendly rivalry, except for online on social media. you know, that you do not want to upset track Twitter, or get on their wrong side. They will come at you with full force. But yeah, it's fun, and I think it's one of the great stories of this sport, that rivalry.
You have competed the 200 meter and 400 meter. Um, do you have a favorite? Which was the your pet event?
I was at my best, when I was competing in both. When I was first starting out in my career, I wasn't mature enough as an athlete at that point to double at championships, and I always found myself having to choose. Okay, am I going to run the 200 or am I going to run the 400? And I wasn't happy about that, having to choose. Um, and I would win the 200 world championship. And I remember winning in 1991, winning the 200-meter world championship, and then sitting in the stands watching someone else win the 400, thinking I should be there. I could win that, and then vice versa. The next championship, 1993, I won my first 400-meter world championship, and I'm watching the 200 meters and seeing somebody else win, thinking I could win that. I should be there. And so finally, I got to a point where I didn't have to choose anymore, and I was not only happiest when I was competing in both, but I ran faster in both races when I was running both.
And how do you prepare for, as you say, grueling 400 and the 200? What is the preparation like for that?
Yeah, I mean it's all about preparation for any track event. When you are going in to compete against the best, which is what we created with Grand Slam Track. The athletes know that you need to be at your best, in order to go in there and compete against the best. And so it's all about preparation. So working with your coach and focusing every day on how you uncover and unlock faster times, unlock more potential. And of course that it's not a simple sort of process. It's a very intricate process of understanding where the opportunities are to get faster, where the opportunities are to get stronger, where the opportunities are to improve technically, and all of those different aspects of competing, and race strategy as well. How do you improve on your ability to execute the race strategy in the race? So it's all of those things. This is a sport that the great thing about it from a spectator standpoint is it's very simple to follow, because it's just literally you know, individuals racing and the first person across the line wins. But what's happening, during the race is very complex for the athletes. And certainly, the preparation to get to that point, being one of the fastest individuals, is very complex as well.
As you mentioned, preparation. Let's talk about the athlete, of a generation, Usain Bolt. I remember watching you when you were commentating, seeing him break your 200 record. What was that like for you?
Watching Usain was really interesting, to see one of those generational talents that doesn't come along often. That can records, challenge the record books, challenge what we previously thought was even humanly possible. Was really cool to watch and to be a part of that as a commentator. um, at the same time, that's not what we, look for in the sport, on a daily basis. It's more about the competition. It was the same thing when I was running. There wasn't a lot of competition. People enjoyed watching me run and win. People enjoyed watching Usain run and win. But what we're building with Grand Slam Track, I think, is a very important point where you're not always going to have athletes like that that are these generational talents. And one of the fundamental flaws with the sport is we've always been looking for, when we enjoyed the time that Usain was in the sport, and then when he retired, what was being said? Oh, we need a new star. We can't. There's not going to be another Usain Bolt. He is a very unique individual. That's what makes him so special. We can't rely on finding Usain Bolts to sustain the sport. We have to create the league of that sport where you have the best of the best athletes competing against one another, and it's about the competition, and that's what people ultimately want to see, and that's what makes that's what sustains a fan base for a sport, and that's why what we have done with Grand Slam Track is created a fundamental change to the model of the sport where the athletes are guaranteed to compete in these competitions. And we have some of the best athletes in the sport. This is an exclusive home for the fastest individuals on the planet. That's a compelling property for people to watch and for fans to get into and know that we're going to see the best competing here against one another. And it's about that competition as opposed to, hey, we've got this one superstar in the sport, so everyone should just watch this individual. I mean, you may as well not even have the other competitors there then when that's the case. But when you do have the competition, people watch. It's great to have stars. We need those too, but we're not always going to have a Michael Johnson or Carl Lewis, Usain Bolt. We're not always going to have that. So that has to be, sort of extra, and it's a bonus when we do, but we can't depend on that because those individuals, those athletes are special and you're not going to always have them. And you can't manufacture them.
No, not at all. And as you mentioned, the competition, how have you managed to attract the caliber of athletes that you've had for the Grand Slam? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we've attracted our racers to our league, to Grand Slam, by giving them what they've always wanted and what athletes in other sports want. What our athletes in track have always wanted is to be compensated fairly for their talent and their value, but they've also wanted to compete on a grand stage more often. If you think about athletes in other individual sports, UFC, for example, or tennis or golf, those athletes get multiple opportunities every year to compete on a grand stage where there is major television exposure, where there is big prize money, and it's important moments that the world stops to watch. Our athletes in track have only gotten that once every 4 years, whereas athletes and their compatriots in other sports get that multiple times a year. So what we have created with Grand Slam Track is an opportunity for track athletes, the best athletes, to have that opportunity multiple times a year to compete against their rivals, to compete for big prize money, to be compensated fairly, and to have it televised globally in over 100 countries, which we are with Grand Slam Track, and with the highest prize money ever awarded in the sport at $100,000 for our first place finisher and $10,000 for our eighth place finisher. But in addition to that, our racers, of which we've signed 48 to our league, also are guaranteed a base compensation for their participation. We also are able to, in turn, guarantee to fans and our broadcast partners that we have the best athletes competing against one another, 4 times every year.
All right, really great. Michael, you're from a big state of Texas. I mean, they're great at American football. You could have chosen between track or football. Why track?
Yeah, I think, it's an interesting question, so track because it was my first love. But I think, it comes back to, this is one of the reasons why I'm starting Grand Slam Track, because no one ever asked the football player, from the state of Texas, you could have run track or you could have played football. Why football? Why didn't you just run track? No one ever asked them that because they know that football has an exclusive home for the best football players on the planet. It's the NFL. Basketball has an exclusive home for the best basketball players on the planet. It's the NBA. track has never had an exclusive home until Grand Slam Track for the fastest people on the planet. So when you have that, then, no one will ever ask a track athlete, oh, why didn't you play football? Or have you ever considered playing football? Or did they try to get you to play football? The reason that question is always asked is because the opportunities traditionally just haven't been there for track athletes to compete and be compensated fairly for who they are. So yeah, so I was fortunate, while yes, Texas certainly is a big football state. I love track. But I was one of the athletes who was fortunate to be able to be compensated fairly and make a good living as a track athlete, but most athletes aren't in that position.
As you prepare for Kingston, what is the message for Jamaicans at home and Jamaicans in the diaspora? What would that message be?
Yeah, get to Kingston, April 4th through 6th, and come check out Grand Slam Track at the National Stadium. It'll be an amazing competition. We have the best athletes in the world. If you're not able to get to Kingston, watch us on TV. Here in the US, we're on Peacock, we're on the CW. In the UK and across Europe, we're on Eurosport and TNT. We're televised around the world. So watch the best athletes again, an exclusive home for the fastest people on the planet competing against one another. Everybody watched the Olympics. You saw the big star athletes competing against one another, high stakes, fast people competing, great storytelling around it. That's what we're duplicating with Grand Slam Track. So if you love that, you will love this.
Thanks so much. I have bought my season pass already, Michael, so you'll be glad to know that. So I will be
I
there.
appreciate it. I appreciate it.
You've made a significant contribution, to track and field. What do you think is your most important legacy in the sport?
Look, a legacy is an interesting thing. It's always a good thing for others to discuss than the subject of of that legacy, which is me. I'll leave that to others. I think, I had my time as an athlete. I think I left my mark on the sport. And hopefully it has inspired other young athletes as well, and thrilled fans. That is my hope, of what my legacy would be. I think that's what I hear most. So I'm certainly pleased with that. But in the position I am now as commissioner and founder of Grand Slam Track, my hope is to transform this sport into one of the most popular sports in the world. I think it can be there. I certainly believe in it. It's a great sport. It just needed to be modernized and updated for today's fan. And I think we've done that with Grand Slam Track. It's a road ahead of us in order to continue to build this. We're not going to get it all right in year one. But that is our objective. And I believe in this sport enough to believe that we're going to be able to transform it into a huge modern sport up there with the UFCs and Formula Ones of the world.
If you had to put together a relay team, Michael, two Americans, two Jamaicans, or what would that team? Who would comprise that team?
I'm assuming this is a 4x1.
Yes, let's go for the sprint. Yes.
Well, first, I'm going to put the Americans on first and anchor, so they don't have to exchange the baton as much because we don't do well with the baton. So your middle legs are the ones that have to handle the baton for twice. They got to hand it, they got to take it, and they got to hand it out. So I'm going to put the Jamaicans in the middle for that reason because I trust them better with the baton. I would come out of the blocks with, oh, who am I coming out of the blocks? I'll come out of the blocks with Maurice Green. I'm going to come out of the blocks with Maurice Green. I'll put Carl Lewis on second. I'm going to put no, I'm going to put Carl on anchor. Can't trust him with the baton, American. I'll put Usain on. I'm going to put Usain on second, and I'm going to put Shelly Ann Fraser Price on the third.
Wow, wow, wow. Kudos
Yeah,
to Shelly Ann, during Women's History Month. So we want to thank you
yeah.
for,
I'm taking Carl. I'm taking
recognizing.
Carl off. I'm taking Carl off anchor. I'm putting Flo Jo on anchor.
Okay, okay. Will there be any, initiatives, to for Grand Slam to support like youth athletics? What are some of those plans?
Absolutely. So we're working right now with champs. So we're this is in progress with our team at Grand Slam Track and the team at Champs right now to integrate some of the athletes from champs into our Grand Slam track event. So they will be able to compete there. I think that's going to be very special. We're also, long term looking at how we actually use Grand Slam track as a way to give back to the communities where we actually hold our slams. So, of course, this year we're in Kingston, we're in Miami, and Philadelphia, and Los Angeles. We've already, worked with the government of Jamaica, to deliver a stunning, new track there in the National Stadium that will be there for generations to come. But also we look at ways where we can, showcase young athletes. We're looking at ways that we can donate to programs as well from a financial income and equipment standpoint. Many youth track and field organizations around the globe, not just in Jamaica, not just here in the U.S., but around the globe, struggle for equipment. And it's important for us as a league that we continue to encourage young people to be involved in the sport, and there's no better way to do that than to take care of the top of the sport with an exclusive, home that's aspirational, where people can watch the best athletes in the world, and young athletes can aspire to be part of that league, like what we're doing with Grand Slam Track. That also take care of the other end of that as well, which is the grassroots level, where again some of these programs struggle with funding and struggle with equipment. So we're looking for ways where we can support them.
And Michael, just as we are wrapping to go into the final, I'll just ask you to give us an endorsement, say who you are and encourage those fans on Jamaicans.com to, support the Grand Slam. So if you want to just close with that for us.
Absolutely. I'm Michael Johnson, Olympic champion, CEO, commissioner, and founder of Grand Slam Track. We're excited to be bringing our first Grand Slam Track event to Kingston, Jamaica, April 4th through 6th, and would love for you guys to come out and support us or watch us on TV. There'll be some great athletes, great moments. If you loved watching the Olympics, you'll love watching Grand Slam Track.
Thank you so much. We're talking with four-time Olympian Michael Johnson. He is the founder, executive director of the Grand Slam Championship. Thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with us here on Jamaicans.com.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.